I stepped off the plane with grit still in my socks and a grocery list in my head. Steak for the grill, a six-pack for the deck. 10 minutes of quiet to remember what home feels like. Then I turned onto my street and my chest went cold. Because my backyard was gone, not trimmed, not tidied, gone replaced by a plastic fence and two cheerful signs that said, Pine Hollow Preserve, like someone had planted a park where my life used to be. I sat there with the engine ticking and the picture in my head cracking all at once. You know what I mean? The way a place can feel familiar and wrong at the same time. That's when I heard her bright voice, soft sneakers, the president of our HOA, Beverly Crane, waving at me like she'd just delivered a casserole. She said, "Welcome back." Like she meant it then. Pointed to the fence line that had jumped 30+ feet. Called it a gray area. Said the board voted to repurpose the space for the good of the community. Said I wasn't using it anyway. Said funds were allocated, and it was already approved, and wrapped it with the kind of thank you for your service that feels like $2 on a $100 tab. I told her that's not how property law works. She shrugged, like I was making it awkward, and tossed over her shoulder. That maybe I shouldn't leave for so long next time. And yeah, that happened. I didn't yell. Anger's loud and sloppy. I went quiet and precise. Changed out of my uniform, drove to county records and pulled the plat. Like I was reading a map in a storm. My lot lines were exactly where I remembered, and the clerk leaned in and said the HOA had filed a boundary correction while I was deployed. Said there was a notarized affidavit transferring a chunk of my lot to the board, and slid me a printout with a signature that looked like a left-handed kid, copied my name with a crayon, and a $5 consideration like this was a yard sale. I called Dev Patel, the only lawyer I trust, and he went straight to work. Fraud forgery filings that smell like wire fraud because they pushed it electronically. And we didn't just ask for my land back, we asked the court to freeze the HOA's assets, open their books, and if it wasn't a one-off, put the whole thing into receivership. We drew a good number on the docket. Judge Whitaker, retired Air Force, the kind of man who could balance fairness on a thumbnail, and he granted the injunction so fast, the gavel felt like punctuation, all expenditures and construction touching my parcel. Frozen, prepare to compel records, bring clean copies. No games. Beverly strolled into the hearing without counsel, just color-coded folders. And that golf visor gave the room a smile that bounced off brick. Said it was a misunderstanding. Said I was territorial. Said they were improving property values. And the judge didn't blink. Said your job isn't to improve the community with forged documents. Your job is to follow the law. Then, Dev walked the exhibits. The cousin notary licensed in Idaho, not New Mexico, the emailed line from Beverly to her board. That read, "We need this done quickly before he's back. The committee will handle signatures," and the air shifted the way a room does when the truth finds a microphone. I walked my wrecked boundary that afternoon, saw a fresh pile of mulch and a laminated stake that read Hellness Garden Phase 2 approved May 14th. The injunction was dated May 12th. I took a photo with the timestamp screaming at the sun and sent it to Dev, contempt. The county inspector came by with a face like rebar and called it blatant. Said they were lucky it wasn't criminal yet, and that yet sat heavy on my tongue. The twist came from inside. It usually does. A treasurer named Ellen Ward called Dev and asked for protection, then handed over emails, off-book minutes, and invoices paid to a company called Mesa Vista Improvements. And if you scratched the paint, you found out Mesa Vista was just a shell owned by Beverly's brother-in-law. Money labeled beautification walking out of the HOA account like it had legs, and next to homeowner names on a spreadsheet were notes like low-friction snowbirds, elderly military, and next to mine, someone had typed, "Gone through summer." Prime target. We moved for receivership. The judge granted. It stripped the board's power, installed a third-party administrator, and the Civic Center meeting felt like a neighborhood learning to breathe. The admin said my transfer was fraudulent and would be reversed immediately. All projects under the old board, suspended refunds issued. If funds allowed, and from the back, Mr. Ramsey, who'd been here since foundation days, called out progress doesn't usually end in handcuffs, and the laughter that followed was the kind that gets stuck in your eyes. 2 mornings later, an unmarked SUV idled at Beverly's corner windbreakers, at the door 5 minutes at the threshold. Then she was in the back seat with her handbag clutched like a life preserver. Dev called search and seizure, electronics records, HOA files. Feds are in it now. Bank fraud and tax ID issues that jump state lines. And I felt relief, but not closure. So I walked the new orange stakes the county had planted and noticed a rectangle of disturbed earth near the back fence, like the ground was keeping a secret. I dug and hit, cedar, opened a box that smelled like pencils, and pulled out a notebook, not the minutes you file, the ones you hide. Beverly's handwriting across pages, names, lot numbers, fence, first paperwork, second tactics, hush money. Framed as wellness stipends, and notes like if he contests. Push development permit. It wasn't a ledger, it was a confession. Todd, the vice president with the tight polo, flipped when the wind changed, handed over passwords to a private email server that routed through a desert data center, and inside those threads were spreadsheets labeled marketing partners, homeowner, birthdays and phone numbers, and smart lock codes harvested during last year's security upgrade. Exported to shell companies that resold data, and the floor dropped another foot. Because it wasn't just lines on a map. It was identity, privacy, trust sold like bulk screws. Indictments landed like a summer hailstorm. 20+ counts for Beverly Wire and mail fraud. Money laundering, conspiracy, identity theft. 3 board members named the IRS stepped in, like the last guest at a bad party, and started asking tax questions, and the administrator recommended dissolving the HOA. The town council voted to absorb the common areas. For now, the neighborhood turned the signposts into fairy light anchors, and the word dues quietly became donations. My land came back on paper first. Then in lumber and blisters, I set the swing again and listened to a grill 2 houses down, like it was a song I used to know. Then the prosecutor asked if I'd speak at sentencing, and I said yes before the voice in my head could say, "Run." The federal courtroom was cold and bright, Beverly in a gray pantsuit that made her look smaller. Hands, laced white eyes, locked on a spot no one else could see. The prosecutor laid out checks and dates and emails without drama. The truth didn't need a spotlight. And when I spoke, I kept it simple. I said I came home to a garden where my backyard used to be, but it wasn't about land. It was about trust, about power. When it stops being stewardship and starts being appetite, about neighbors being treated like obstacles, and how we took our place back with patience and law and truth, not with noise. Her lawyer asked for leniency age and a clean record. Judge Whitaker set his jaw and said your client orchestrated targeted abuse over several years, manipulated trust, treated a community like a ledger, and pronounced 22 years in federal custody. No frills, no victory chants, just gravity moving to where it belonged. Life didn't turn cinematic after that. It got real and quiet. Refund checks arrived in thin envelopes. Property lines snapped back to where memory said they should be. The rec room became a community hall. Meetings turned into potlucks and debates, with good food on paper plates. The town asked me to sit on a task force to help other neighborhoods crawl out of bad HOAs. I said no. Then thought about Medeo Ramsey, scraping shutters at his own pace, and the new couple whose toddler ran through sprinklers without getting a letter about grass height, so I said fine. One meeting, which turned into a framework. Every financial report public. No closed sessions. Direct elections. Term limits. No fines. Without a judge's signature, any resident can force a vote by petition. And for a year, as a bridge, I had veto power on land reassignments that I never used, because once people see how accountability feels, they don't forget it. Beverly's house went to auction. A teacher and a mechanic bought it. Painted the door night blue. Hung a porch swing that thumps against the siding. When the breeze picks up, the wellness garden got bulldozed, and my fence line grew back like a healed scar. I set a small plaque flush with the soil, where only I see it, that says this land was stolen. It was taken back. And when I catch it out of the corner of my eye, I don't think about Beverly. I think about quiet, and how good it feels when a place stops asking you to prove you belong. If you've lived any version of this HOA, or not a small circle of power that decided it liked the taste of fear, I want to hear it. What did you try? What worked? What backfired? Do you think HOAs can be saved with sunlight and limits, or are they broken by design? Where's your line between order and overreach? Tell me in the comments and argue it like neighbors who plan to see each other again. And if you think I pushed too far, say it. If you think we didn't push far enough, say that too. Share this with the one person on your block who needs backup. And if this hit close, tap subscribe. Because quiet isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the sound of a plan snapping into place.